Today, we're continuing our postpartum mini series, moving into weeks 5 through 8 postpartum, a season that often feels confusing. You may feel more like yourself, but unsure. Can I do more now? Should I be doing more? And what does safe actually mean postpartum when it comes to returning to exercise? This episode is not about rushing your return to exercise. Rather, it's about reintroducing strength and movement with wisdom and the guidance of an orthopedic and pelvic floor physical therapist. Yours truly. Your goal is to support your pelvic floor, core, hormones, and nervous system, not fighting against them. So currently, I am 7 weeks postpartum with my 4th child. And my very first kiddo, I overdid it. I did not tear. I felt really good pretty quick postpartum. I had exercised all pregnancy, including running. And so when you exercise throughout pregnancy, it absolutely makes for a more ease-filled postpartum. And if you're listening to this while pregnant and you're not sure what exercises to do, visit drkaylaborchers.com/pregnancy and join my Holistically Well Pregnancy program. I will guide you through how to exercise during pregnancy to support not only you, but baby and make for a more ease-filled postpartum recovery. And so that is what I have done every pregnancy. But with my first kiddo, I had never healed postpartum before, and I thought I could just jump right back into what I was doing during pregnancy. I experienced significant pelvic floor symptoms, primarily being leakage of urine with any kind of lifting or exercise. And looking back, I just did way too much too soon. The more you do early on often prolongs bleeding as well as we're healing that internal uterine wound. So go back to episode 42 in this postpartum mini series if you have not yet listened to it to learn how to support the body weeks 0 to 4 postpartum, because that lays the foundation for everything we're discussing today. We want to be sure that we are focusing on rest and healing first before jumping into strength training, which is really what weeks 5 through 8 is all about. Now, if you're 5 weeks postpartum and you are wanting to just jump straight into what we're talking about today, you need to do weeks 0 to 4 first. And this is what I educate women on who join my Holistically Well Postpartum program as well. I don't care if you are 1 week postpartum, if you are 12 weeks postpartum, you need to lay the foundation first. So go back to episode 42 or go back to week 1 of my Holistically Well Postpartum program, no matter where you are on that continuum, because we need to build the foundation first. Just like if you're building the house, we can't say, oh, well, I'm ready to just start picking out paint colors, but the foundation isn't even poured. Yeah, you can pick out paint colors. You can know what you're going to do. You can listen to this episode and know what's down the road for you, but you can't yet act on it, right? You need to lay the foundation first, and then you can have this knowledge up here for strength training when it is time, but we cannot skip those first steps. Weeks 5 through 8 postpartum are what I consider a bridge phase. The uterus is continuing to involute, it's continuing to heal. Connective tissue is still remodeling, specifically at that diastasis recti region between your abdominal muscles and in your pelvic floor. Your hormones are fluctuating, especially if you're breastfeeding. You may feel more capable, but physiologically your body is still healing. This is where many women unintentionally do too much because the pain has decreased, energy feels better, and external expectations creep back in. Feeling better does not mean that we are fully healed, though. Remember, it took 9 months to grow this baby, so we can't expect to be fully, quote, healed in 4 to 6 weeks, right? Now, what does cleared for exercise really mean? One of the biggest misconceptions postpartum is this idea of being, quote, cleared for exercise at our 6-week visit with an OBGYN or midwife. That clearance simply means that tissues have healed enough to tolerate movement, not that your body is ready for intensity, impact, or maximal effort. Now, scientifically, where does the 6-week number come from? Well, it takes 4 to 6 weeks for true muscle and tissue change to occur. We look at this same weekly guidance when we're developing muscle strength or when we're healing from a surgery or from an injury. 4 to 6 weeks is what it takes for true muscle and connective tissue change to occur. So that same tissue healing time frame is utilized for the woman postpartum. And that's why we go on the latter end, the 6-week end, for a quote clearance to return to exercise, when really we can return to gentle breath work and restorative alignment work earlier than that. And at 6 weeks, we should not just quote jump back into what we were doing previously. Clearance is the starting point, not the finish line. Not a finish line to say, okay, you've healed, now you just can do whatever you want to do. It's the starting point of when you can ease back into more strength-based training and higher activity levels beyond the foundational healing phase. That is that 0 to 4 weeks postpartum that we talked about in episode 42. Now, clinical perspectives that I want to share as an orthopedic and pelvic floor physical therapist is that the pelvic floor coordination may still be inconsistent. You may still be having difficulty with that brain to muscle connection that you started working on in weeks 0 to 4. And that's okay. Everybody has different healing time frames. It may take somebody 8 weeks to move through some of the foundational healing frameworks that I discussed, whereas somebody else it may take 4. And that's why I created a self-paced program in Holistically Well Postpartum, because everybody's going to move through this differently. And I explain as you move through that program what you should be feeling in your body in order to progress to the next week's exercise videos. And if you're still struggling to experience that in your own body with the week that you're on, then you stay there. You keep moving through the week that you're in until you have mastered it to then move on to that next level. So it's very progressive, gently so, and individualized so that you can make it work best for your own body. Now, another clinical perspective is that abdominal wall tension and pressure management are still adapting. So again, this is kind of the starting point of where we're progressing from. It's not the finish line. We're not done with that healing at that 6-week mark, right? So in this 5 to 8 week time frame, think of it as the bridge from foundational healing to further strengthening and plyometrics and running and that kind of stuff. We're in this strength building phase. And finally, fatigue and sleep deprivation are still going to have a direct impact on you and will affect your movement quality. So especially if you have a larger baby at birth, such as me, I had an almost 10-pound baby for my 4th child. He was 9 pounds, 10 ounces. He eats every 2 to 3 hours around the clock. And I have to take that into consideration in terms of my muscle adaptation and healing, because my sleep isn't great right now. And that's okay. I know it's not forever, but that is certainly going to affect your healing time frame. And you have to take that into consideration and give yourself grace accordingly. Next, let's move into rebuilding the core. We want to focus on function before intensity. In weeks 5 through 8 postpartum, the core is not about aesthetics or getting your abs back. It's about function. We want to learn how to manage pressure through the diaphragm, the abdominal wall that wraps from the front to the back, and the pelvic floor during everyday movement. This is where breath remains foundational and why you need to master diaphragmatic breathing before we go on to any kind of strength building activities for the core. Key concepts with this are learning to coordinate your breath with movement. So for instance, you want to inhale, a nice good diaphragmatic inhale where you actually find length into the pelvic floor and the core. And then on your exhale, you want to gently activate the pelvic floor and the core. Pelvic floor first, then core. And that's going to protect your spine, your hips, your pelvis as you lift your child, as you lift a stroller, as you lift a toddler up into their car seat, or you lift your baby within their car seat into the car. Those are all activities that require lifting a load. And if we don't know how to lift correctly, if we don't know how to breathe correctly with that lift, that's when we can see things such as a disc herniation occur or prolapse or leakage, right? Whatever that weak point is where we will see the symptom come through or the pain come through, right? We never, ever, ever want to bear down or brace too aggressively or hold our breath with any kind of lifting movements. Now, this goes with everyday life activities, but it also goes with lifting weights. Never, ever, ever bear down or brace too aggressively. What's going to happen with that is this huge skyrocket in pressure And again, we'll see an injury occur at that point of weakness. So, for instance, with bearing down or breath holding with lifting, we can see that make prolapse worse. We can see it weaken the pelvic floor tissues over time. We can see it lead to herniation. And so, again, if you find yourself doing that, you need to learn to breathe with your movement. And if you can't exhale on the effort, you can't exhale when you're lifting something, you need to recognize that whatever you're lifting is too heavy for you and you need to ask for help. If you're doing it in an exercise, you need to stop. You need to reduce your weight or choose a different exercise. And if it's a daily life activity that you're doing and you can't do it without bearing down or over bracing or breath holding, then you need to reconsider your environment and how you can change that activity to be done safely. Now let's talk practically for a second about what this can look like, because in daily life, we have to lift our kiddos, right? So I like to think about controlled transitions. So this is as you're building up strength, you want to make sure that you're supporting your body appropriately. So for instance, moving from sitting to standing while holding your baby, scoot to the edge of the couch, take a nice big inhale to get length into pelvic floor and core. And on your exhale, engage pelvic floor, gently engage core and stand. If you are on the floor with your baby, they're doing tummy time, lay on your tummy with them. That's so good for your abdominal healing. And then you can make your way up onto a 90-90 position, bring baby to your chest, and hip hinge yourself up off the floor. Practice these movement transitions without holding baby to make sure that you feel confident in them. You feel that you have the strength in them. You're not having to bear down. You can do it with your breath, and then you can do it with baby in your arms very safely. This is why building strength is important in motherhood, and transitioning into this bridge category of strength training is necessary part of motherhood, because we are lifting things all the time, including our kiddos. And so doing so in an exercise format is going to help you be more safe whenever you're doing it in a daily life format with living life with your kiddos. Now, a final note in terms of the core is that doming or coning is a symptom to monitor. It's something to watch for as you're progressing core exercises, but it is not a red flag. It's not a hard stop. It's more of a yellow flag of okay, this is a symptom we want to pay attention to and modify our exercise so that our exhale can control that coning. It can bring what's called our transverse abdominis online and prevent that coning out or that herniation through those weakened tissues between your six-pack muscles. So first, see if you can exhale on the effort and control that coning or doming, or if you can slightly lighten the resistance of the exercise. For instance, if you're doing a side plank, to have both knees down instead of both legs straight and extended. That's going to make the exercise a little bit easier to then see if you can perform the exercise without the coning or doming. But at the first sign of it, you don't need to immediately stop what you're doing. You want to monitor, you want to see if you can reduce the resistance, see if your exhale can control the coning, and then determine if you can continue with the exercise or if you need to completely switch up what you're doing. Diving into the pelvic floor next, one of the most important skills during weeks 5 through 8 is learning how to listen to pelvic floor feedback with exercise, with activities. So symptoms that you feel, such as leakage or pressure or heaviness or a lack of that muscle even turning on or lengthening, this is the muscle communicating with you. And there's signs that the system needs support, needs to be worked on and not to be ignored. Okay. And this is where working with a pelvic floor PT as a guide, such as myself, is a game changer. Because if you are working with just a general personal trainer, or you're just following general exercise guidelines from free YouTube videos or a general fitness app, you're not getting the specific pelvic floor education and cueing that you need to address this specific muscle group. Pelvic floor physical therapists and occupational therapists are the only ones who have intense pelvic floor training. So keep that in mind. I am all for the different exercise apps that are out there and utilizing free YouTube videos as needed. But when we are postpartum, we need to make sure we're addressing this super specific muscle group that played an imperative role in bringing this new child into the world, whether you had a vaginal delivery or a cesarean. And you're only going to get that with a trained professional. So really making sure that you're working with a pelvic floor therapist in order to do so. And yes, I have an online program, but again, it's developed by a pelvic floor PT. So you're going to get the pelvic floor PT cues. And that can be found at drkaylaborchers.com/postpartum. All right, so we need to reframe the pelvic floor in that it thrives on being responsive. We're not focusing on just strengthening the pelvic floor. What we really need to focus on is getting that pelvic floor to be responsive to what we're doing. So when we're relaxed, when we're sitting on the couch nursing, and when we're in a relaxed state, that pelvic floor should be relaxed. It shouldn't be tensed. It shouldn't be on guard. So I want you to check in with yourself the next time you're feeding your baby. Am I just clenching my glutes and my pelvic floor for no reason? If so, really focus on your inhale. Focus on, as you inhale, separating those sit bones, helping that pelvic floor to feel soft, helping those glutes to feel soft and unclenched. You may even put your hand down there so that you're sitting on it. You can kind of feel that tension and breathe into your hand, feeling that lengthening, feeling that relaxation. We need to find length first. Next is exhaling on the effort, and we want to think about lifting a marble through our vaginal opening as we do so. So such as that transition off the couch, right? But then we can include this in exercises such as bridges. So exhale as we bridge the hips up, starting with the pelvic floor. So you're going to exhale, lift the pelvic floor first, engage the glutes, bridge the hips up, and then inhale as you lower the hips back down. Same is true for a squat, right? Inhale, squat down. Exhale, think about lifting a marble through that vaginal opening, and then engage glutes as you rise to stand. So pelvic floor muscles need to turn on first because they're providing support and stability for all of the other muscles that attach to the pelvis. When you're out walking, that's an example of something where we're not going to pair our breath exactly with our movement, such as we did with the bridge or with our squat. When we're walking, we just want this natural rhythmic flow of inhale length, exhale gentle recoil. We're not getting any of that active contraction, such as when we're pairing it with a specific movement. So the examples could be never ending with this. We can include it in our core workouts. We can include it if we're doing dumbbell arm curls. Exhale on the effort, inhale, we want length, length, length down in to that pelvic floor. And so the common theme here is that we're training that pelvic floor to be responsive like a trampoline, where it goes down and it comes back up, and it's not stiff as a board and staying stuck in one position. Now, it's important to recognize that setbacks in regards to our pelvic floor and just our postpartum healing in general are common and can be normal. So long as we listen to that, we honor it, and we scale back until we can master the therapeutic level below where that symptom occurred, where that setback occurred, and then we can safely progress onward. Now, strength training absolutely belongs in postpartum, especially in weeks 5 through 8, but this timing and intention matters, right? I've said it multiple times, but I'm going to say it one more time. Build your foundation first. Weeks 0 to 4, we are building the foundation. No matter what point postpartum you're at, you need to start with your foundation, your breath, your alignment. And then in weeks 5 through 8, strength should be the focus, where it feels really supported, grounding, confidence building, and restorative, never depleting. You should never finish a strength workout postpartum feeling depleted. We actually want to feel more energized after we complete a strength building workout postpartum. So this is really helpful to understand, because when we are strength training, we're actually breaking down the muscle to repair it stronger. And if the amount of breakdown for your muscles is greater than the energy stores you have to repair, you're going to find yourself in a state of depletion. And I don't mean depletion in terms of, oh, great, I'm going to lose weight. No, you're shifting yourself into really fight or flight mode, which would actually have your body cling on to weight more, because it's in a stressed out survival mode state where it feels like it doesn't have the nourishment or the nutrient stores to help rebuild what you're breaking down. And that's specifically looking at muscle. If you're also breastfeeding, that's just going to be even greater of a concern, right? So some kind of muscle breakdown is a good thing. It's going to repair stronger, but you need the metabolic stores and the nutrient stores to be able to rebuild those muscles stronger. Now, when you build muscle, when you build strength, it actually increases your metabolic output. So some women will ask, well, I just feel like I'm not losing weight postpartum, and I want to nourish my baby. I want to nourish myself. But what we find is they're actually just not nourishing themselves enough. And so their body is holding on to extra adipose tissue, extra fat stores, because it's not getting enough input. It's not getting enough nutrients. And then they're also over exercising. They don't have enough nutrients to rebuild the muscle nor support their breastfeeding. So the body just holds on to fat stores so that it has stuff to pull from. Okay. And so I just bring that in because it's an important part of strength training. And women often ask about breastfeeding with strength training. You just need to listen to your body and understand what is too much for you. And again, that can look different for each person. And in my program, I very much cue, you can do one set of each exercise, or you could do 3, and that's going to look different for each person. And I give you different tracks that you can follow dependent on what you're feeling in your body. So if I have a day where I didn't sleep great, I'm going to do 1 round of each exercise versus 3. If I get a good night's sleep and I get a nap that day, then I'm going to feel like I have the metabolic output to be able to do full 3 rounds. Okay. So important to note there. And then finally, we want to build our tolerance before we build any kind of exercise complexity. So stick with the basics. This is not a time to get fancy. Again, we wanted to master the foundations of alignment and breath work and turning our muscles back on. Now we want to establish the basics of strength training to feel good there, and then we can increase complexity. Things like plyometrics, jumping, running, that is all to come down the road. Not now. Weeks 5 through 8 are strictly for building that strength back up foundationally. Finally, I want to touch on nervous system, our energy levels, and the role of rest. Yes, still. Even though movement is returning and at a greater level, rest is still a non-negotiable part of healing. Your nervous system continues to regulate hormone output, milk production, tissue repair, and emotional resilience. We cannot forget the mental health component of healing postpartum. Movement layered on top of exhaustion does not build strength, it will drain it. And so really keeping this important note in mind is that we want to leave our workouts feeling energized, feeling better, not feeling depleted or exhausted. It should help contribute to our restoration, not pull from it. So recovery doesn't end when our movement resumes. It continues and it evolves. And so in this week 5 through 8 timeframe, it's really bridging the foundation to higher level activities, and you want to focus on that foundational, stable strength building. So on a personal note, how am I balancing this right now, 7 weeks postpartum with my 4th child? I do movement usually at nap time. So I have a toddler who still naps, and baby is with me. So whether he is also napping, he's starting to take naps by himself where I can nurse him. He'll be drifting off to sleep and I'm able to lay him in his bassinet. Sometimes he sleeps on me. Sometimes he's having an awake window. And so if he's sleeping on me, then I might do some laying down exercises. I can do bridges with him on my chest. Sometimes I'll lay him in side lying next to me and I can do side lying leg lifts. I have a whole side lying series in my postpartum program that's awesome to move through if baby likes to be right on you. He could be nursing in side lying while I'm doing side lying leg lifts, and just you make it work, right? But when toddler naps, that is my movement time. No matter what baby's doing, I fit him into it. So again, there's a side lying series you could do. Baby could be sleeping next to you. They could be on your breast and side lying. You can do bridge progressions with baby laying on your chest. Then there are standing progressions such as squats, hip hinges, deadlifts. Again, with baby on your chest is perfect. You could be baby wearing or holding them. And then I love hands and knees positions. Baby could be lying right between your 2 hands, doing things like cat-cow, core knee hovers, bird dog, hip extension, fire hydrant. And you're talking to baby, you're cooing at baby. Their gaze can be locked on yours as you're doing this. So my postpartum movement program is really focused on bringing baby into your world because that's how it is, especially as we heal postpartum. We want baby to be with us. And the reality is that baby needs taken care of, right? And mom is going to be their favorite person, especially during this 4th trimester, which is the first 12 weeks postpartum. So weeks 5 through 8 are not about proving what our bodies can do. It's about rebuilding trust, learning how to move again in a body that has changed, carried new life, and is still healing. And so for me, if the night before I haven't gotten a good night's rest, I'll take a nap first, and we will nap as much as we need to. Sometimes I'll get into a deep sleep for an hour. Sometimes it's just a 20-minute cat nap. I awake, I feel ready to move my body. And again, baby will be with me. And so it's just incredibly important that you honor this season. You set yourself up not just for a strong return to movement in the short term, but for longevity, for resilience and confidence in your body for the years to come. And what I keep coming back to with this and why it's important for me to incorporate exercise into my day is that it helps me show up as a better mother, not just to my baby, but to my other three children. And as I'm recording this, we have had just so many different delays and cancellations with it's been like a crazy winter. And those days that we had cancellations, my daughter would be home from school and she doesn't nap. She would be with us. Sometimes she would hold baby as I moved. Sometimes she would do the exercises with me and we would just kind of take turns on who cuddled baby if he was acting up. And so bring your kids into your world. It doesn't have to be something that you do separate for them. You're showing them how important movement and healing your body is and how you're honoring yourself in this sacred season, that it's not only about baby. It's you helping yourself so that you can be the best mother for the baby and for your other children. So I just want you to know that there is so much wisdom in slowly building strength and that it's not something that's going to be done all at once. There is so much grace that can be found in rebuilding your body one layer at a time. If this episode supported you, know that I am here cheering you on. And if you want additional support, please visit drkaylaborchers.com/postpartum. You can use code POD20, that's POD20, for 20% off my Holistically Well postpartum program. I would love to support you as you return to exercise safely with the help of an orthopedic and pelvic floor physical therapist postpartum.